Thanks for the intro. It can only go downhill from there, really, can't it? So I'm delighted to be here this morning to talk to you about IBM's partnership with Wimbledon. I want to get under the skin of the very traditional tennis tournament and talk about the beating digital heart that's actually underneath there now. Sport is big business, and Wimbledon is competing with major sporting events for fans' loyalty and attention. So if we look at this year, for example, the UEFA European Football Championships will be held exactly the same time as Wimbledon. I promise that's the last I'm going to mention football, okay? So let's move on to Formula One, where the British Grand Prix, again, a major sporting event in the UK, is actually on exactly the same day as the gentlemen's singles final, and will be on at exactly the same time as the gentlemen's singles final. So Wimbledon have got to compete with these brands for fans' attention. And you may be thinking, well, what's fans got to do with me? But hopefully as we talk through this, you'll see where I'm talking about fans, you'll be talking about customers for your businesses and your own clients. So I probably don't have to explain to the audience here what Wimbledon is, but we may have people on the live stream who don't know what Wimbledon is, so if you'll just bear with me for a second. So Wimbledon is actually a private members club, and still is. There's 350 members of the club. But each year it partners with the LTA to run one of the 4 major tournaments for professional tennis, known as the Grand Slams. The first tournament was in 1877, won by a Brit, thank goodness. Okay. IBM have been partnering for over 25 years. It's actually going to be our 27th championships with them. And just think about that for a minute. That's 27 years of a partnership. Right? Think about your own relationships, those that are old enough. Think about your own relationships. I may have to ask my wife, because we just celebrated our 23rd wedding anniversary over the weekend, about what she thinks it takes to keep up a relationship for that amount of time. So that's IBM and Wimbledon. Like many businesses, they're looking to do digital transformation. They're no different to any other enterprise out there. They need to be better. They need to create better facilities for the fans, better facilities for the media, better facilities for the players, okay? And we're going to be helping them do that. And our point of view is to bring the technology to life, but without changing the essentialness of Wimbledon, which is it's tennis in an English country garden, and it will always be played on grass, okay? So some of our challenges when we're implementing Wi-Fi, 4G, things like that, is to make sure that the aerials are painted the right shade of green. Okay, so that's the sort of attention to detail that we have to preserve the unique character of Wimbledon. So, they have a simple mission statement. It's to be the best tennis tournament in the world. Easy to say. In fact, last year they pulled a surprise on us. They said, we've changed our mission statement. We want to be the best tennis tournament in the world by some distance on all measures. We went, thanks. So again, think about how that affects you and your businesses, your clients. Okay? What they're saying is they want to be better than the competition on every key performance indicator that they decide to come up with. So think about going into your boardroom or your client and saying, that's what we're going to do. And that is the mission. So why is being best important to them? Being best is all about generating the best sponsorships with companies like IBM and their broadcast partners like ESPN and BBC. By generating that revenue through those sponsorship arrangements, they can then do better prize money and it can invest in the facilities. And they attract the best players. And it becomes this loop of being the best. Okay? Now, there of course is a challenge in that. Because to get to the fans, they need to invest and be the best in their digital platforms. But they're in direct competition with the people that they partner with. So many people in this audience will probably go to the BBC website, sport website, to look for things to do with Wimbledon. Well, that doesn't really help Wimbledon, okay? They sold the video rights but what they really like to do is drive traffic to Wimbledon.com. Okay? So our challenge at IBM is to make Wimbledon.com the best place to come to for the tennis information. And we have a simple mission statement. It's the next best thing to being there. Only 500,000 people, in fact less than 500,000 people every year, will actually come into the tournament during the 13 days. So you've got to get out to a much wider audience than that. And that's where the digital platform comes in. So we've been on a sort of, our new digital agenda since 2012, building roadmaps about what's going to happen year on year. We introduced a complete refresh of the web platform in 2012. We introduced a complete refresh of the web platform in 2015. So that shows you the pace of change they want to do. It's not just, well, we've got a new super duper website, we're going to leave it there. Within 3 championships, that website was needed to be refreshed, needed to be changed to get out to new customers and markets. So 2015, our refresh was really all about responsiveness and adaptability in the web platform, and to make sure that you got the best out of whichever device you were coming to Wimbledon.com with. So this may surprise you. 80% of the users to Wimbledon.com still come from the desktop. Okay? Because everything's mobile, right? Mobile first. Right? We're all going to design for mobile first. Well, we do, but the desktop is still a massively important constituency for us. Again, when does Wimbledon happen? It happens in the summer, not quite the school holidays when it's scheduled. It's also in the office hours of Europe and North America. Okay? So why do we get lots of desktop users? Okay? So yes, there are plenty of people watching the tennis on Wimbledon.com during the championships. And you can see here, as I said, people do lots of responsive designs, mobile up and adapt and stuff like that. We're taking advantage of the extra width you get on the widescreen desktop monitors to add content that you'll only ever see on the desktop. So there's this real-time scoring bar that pops out on the side, which allows you to keep the news and feeds coming in whilst you can still see the real-time scores coming in parallel. And only those desktop users will get that experience. And this is important because the design brief, remembering next best thing to being there, is to use lots of video and lots of imagery, the iconic imagery of centre court, of Hem and Hill, to pull people into the site. So if we can keep that imagery front and centre, but still deliver the scores, that's what people are after. So content redesign, everybody's doing it, but the idea is to get the content in the context of the moment that's actually happening during the championships. We extend this to post the championships as well. So that iconic imagery I was talking about, if it snows, the homepage of Wimbledon.com will probably have a picture of centre court with snow, right? Okay, and in the autumn or the fall, we'll have pictures of the clubhouse with the ivy that's usually green, turning that lovely shade of red, just to give people an idea of what it's like all year round to be on the site. So did we succeed? Well, yes, we did. Right? We increased our unique users. Our target for last year was 20 million. Okay? Now let's set that 20 million in context. Our previous best before last year had been 19 million. And 19 million happened in 2013. And if there's any people from Britain around who can remember that, we had a men's singles champion for the first time in 77 years, and that's what drove our highest ever traffic. So Wimbledon said to us, no, but we want more. So we managed to break that, and you can see that all the stats were up for the redesign. So the redesign was deemed a success. As I said, the purpose of the redesign was to make it work fluidly, smoothly on all platforms, all devices. So when we look at tablet, we spent a lot of effort thinking about how the navigation works, so making it seamless for people that are moving from that desktop experience into the tablet experience, and also get more imagery in. So you can see we're sticking to our design brief. And that became really important when we looked at the smartphone. So for many years, our smartphone platform for mobile web was just a classic M.dot site, a mobile site. So it was just text. The idea was people would snack on getting the real-time scores and minimum content. We'd all have expensive 3G or whatever it was at the time, data plans. Okay, so the design point was small, data rich, but not heavy on imagery and stuff like that. So the world's changed. We've all got more compute power in our pockets now than got a man to the moon in 1969. So we can use that power. Actually, we've got much more affordable bandwidth into our mobile platforms as well. What's the first question anybody of a certain age asks you when they come around your house? What's the Wi-Fi password, right? So we're living in that age, so we're using it. So again, the imagery can now be used on the website. So you have this experience. It doesn't matter what device we're using. We actually try and give the same experience. And the mobile web increase has been just tremendous. So if we look at that, we're up to the 5.6. So we're up, we're a quarter of the user base now is coming from that mobile platform. A massive growth. And the massive growth is probably at the expense of the app that we've got, and I can talk about that in a second. And we have apps. So everything I've talked about so far is a browser experience. When it gets to June, please visit wimbledon.com. Okay? We have had an iPad app for a few years, again, award-winning. And the idea at the time was to do things on the iPad that you couldn't necessarily easily do on the web. Now that's changing as more frameworks, more capabilities in the browsers. But this introduced the sort of 360-degree immersive videos, which allowed you to see what it was like behind the scenes, imagery that wasn't necessarily available on the web channel. Okay, so that's why we've traditionally used this. It was also designed, I think, specifically for me, because it's sort of a second screen experience. So I don't know about you, I am an armchair sports fan, okay? You can probably tell from my physique that I'm an armchair sports fan and not an active sportsman. So I'll sit there on a Saturday, doesn't matter what's on, I won't mention the football, rugby, bowls, I don't know, right? I'm watching it, but I've got my iPad in front of me, and I am, following along. I'm following on what's going on Twitter. I'm following on and see the stats, all that type of stuff. So I think that iPad app was designed specifically for me to do that. There's just one challenge with that, is during Wimbledon I can't use it because I'm sat in a bunker in Wimbledon, not watching the tennis, but making sure all the systems are running. So I am its number one user who doesn't get to use the iPad app. So it's had a traditional place. I think that place will change as we go forward. But we still spend a lot of effort on our smartphone app. This is actually the best way of getting the real-time scores. It's the quickest way of getting the real-time scores. In fact, if you're sitting there and you happen to be watching TV on an HD channel, or if you're in another country where you've got you've got satellite delay, the scores are updating on your smartphone way before you see the action happen on your screen, which is quite disconcerting, to be honest. Okay. We also use this as engagement for people who are coming on site. So we give them location-based notifications to help and assist them through their day. And that's part of our direction in our roadmap, is to blend the experience of people that are able to come with the experience of people that aren't able to come, and give them the same thing. So that's great, right? That's our award-winning digital platform. So, but how do we know who's using it? How do we know what they're saying about us? Okay? You need to get inside social media. We need to create brand advocates for Wimbledon.com during those 13 days. And we need to use those brand advocates to generate the audience coming to the digital platform. Social media, obviously exploding, and we're spending a lot of time on these various different channels. Wimbledon did some research about what does, coming back to the tradition thing. If you asked them, what was Wimbledon as a person? Describe Wimbledon as if it was a person. You're going to be unsurprised to hear that it's a sort of middle-aged man from the 50s, is how they describe it. And they're going, yeah, we're not sure that's what we want to be for the next generation. So the social media platforms give them a way of talking to different generations in a slightly different tone. Never casual, because that wouldn't be Wimbledon, but actually slightly less formal tone in the copy and what they talk about, and getting more interaction. But what's also very important is that you have to have specific campaigns for each of the social platforms. You can't just go one size fits all. Okay, you really have to look at what can we get out of YouTube, what campaigns can we run, in WhatsApp to make this actually happen. Okay, how are we using Vine? How are we using Periscope to drive traffic back to Wimbledon.com and to create the buzz around the event? It turns out that, again, that decision to use the imagery and to use video was really good, because that's the killer content on the social platforms. And if you look at some of the numbers here, the growth is massive. So we hadn't done anything with Snapchat until last year, and you can see how many interactions we got. And you can see on YouTube, so all of the imagery-based or video-based ones are actually showing massive growth. So that's great. How do I find out what's going on? I'm sending all this stuff out on the social platforms. Well, what we provide to the editorial team is the Social Command Center. And the Social Command Center is allowing them to see what's happening in near real time on Twitter. This year it will be extended to other channels as well. And what we're doing is we're using our natural language cognitive technologies to analyze every tweet, to understand the trends that are going on, okay, to see who the key influencers are. We also trialed some unique algorithms that came out of IBM research to see if we could get a better handle on who were the influencers. And then you can target the content on the influencers and bring the reach in. Okay? Any of you who are eagle-eyed at that screen may notice that there's a member of One Direction up there in the top influencers section, because it turns out that Niall Horan and Liam Payne, as well as being members of One Direction, I had to ask, right? Okay. Are really avid tennis fans. So they become part of the story through the social channel. So that's how we bring all that the data to life through social. As I mentioned, it is about real time. The thing that Wimbledon.com has that nobody else has is the real-time score, is the things that are actually happening point by point during the tournament. They don't give that away to anybody else. So how can they monetize that, and how can they bring that in? And it all starts with a team of data collectors that sit courtside collecting stats about the game. What direction did the serve go in? How was the return hit? Who won the point? How did they win the point? Was it a winner, an unforced error, a lob, a forehand? All of those stats are being collected by data analysts. Those data analysts are actually tennis players that we hire. We train them and hire them to bring them in. Because it turns out it's a lot easier to get tennis players to learn how to use my software than it is to get a bunch of IBMers to learn about tennis. and the first thing we do with that data is we give it to the broadcasters. So you'll see the screens up here. If you're in the UK or some other territories, you'll recognize them. These are the graphics that come on screen during the broadcast. And in parallel to that, we're producing a system called Wimbledon Information System, which is in front of every broadcaster so that they can see the data that's about to go on air. Okay? So the next time you hear a commentator being really clever about the stats, you know the guy who did it. Okay? So maybe they're not as clever as they say. So that's what we do for the broadcasters and the media. For the digital fans, remember we've got quite a few users sitting in the office looking over their shoulder, pretending, just waiting for the boss to come round and then watching the tennis. We create Slam Tracker. And the Slam Tracker brings the data to life with some visualizations to give you an idea of what's going on in the match. But more importantly, it also talks about the keys to the match, which use predictive analytics. Right? And the predictive analytics are there to say, well, if I take the head-to-head of the two players, what do they need to do to win? Okay, and that becomes a fan insight. I often get asked, of course, can you predict the winner? So I have to smile sweetly and say, well, all I can predict is if both players hit their keys, we've got a very good tennis match. And we'll leave it at that. And I swiftly move on. But talking about this real-time nature, every point is significant. You may be watching a match on centre court, but something's going on an outside court which is equally as important. So as part of that social command centre, we're pumping notifications in, so every point goes through an analytics stream to understand whether it's important as a record or a cumulative record or a variance record for the player, for the tournament, for the championships. Okay. And then that allows the editorial team to instantly respond, and you can see some examples here that went out on Twitter, quicker than ESPN, quicker than BBC. And that's the goal for them, is to be on the pace. Okay? I couldn't be an IBMer without talking about Watson. So we have been trialling Watson. So for those that don't know, Watson is the face of our cognitive technologies. And again, we've been using this to mine the vast archives of tennis data, so you can ask it natural language queries. And this is a thing we'll see, I think, coming into our media systems. So instead of a media person coming up to one of our team and asking some convoluted question in natural language, which we then have to translate somehow into some SQL query, right? The system will be able to do that, and we've been running pilots of that. So I'm just going to finish off by talking about, where does all this stuff happen? I'm surrounded by clouds, so it's, as you'd expect, it's in the cloud. Okay? We were doing cloud before it was called cloud, and we've augmented our private cloud infrastructure we've had for many years now with IBM's public cloud, so we have a full hybrid environment. Again, we use predictive analytics that takes historical web logs, it takes player popularity, takes social media engagement into account as an algorithm for how much web capacity we should be providing, and the graph is showing that. Okay? For the last 2 years, our webmaster has not had to manually provision anything. The analytics is in charge. I like to think he still has the big red button that you can hit to provision servers, but he doesn't need to do that. Of course, the bad guys are also out there. 2015 saw a massive increase in security incidents, a lot of denial of service stuff happening at the same time. And again, IBM's core technologies, which we're using for many enterprises around the world, protect IBM.com and Wimbledon.com. It's quite frightening to have both of those brands in your hand for 2 weeks of the year. So, they have a simple mission statement, in pursuit of greatness. Okay? And I do my little bit for that. So, when it gets to late June and Wimbledon starts, and you see all this stuff happening, spare a thought for me, right? I will be in a bunker. I don't see much tennis. I'll be there just in case it doesn't work, okay? But, think about all the stuff that makes it happen as it comes out on your smartphones and things like that. But the key is, are we successful? Is this working? Well, the evidence would suggest, yes, it is. We have had awards for many years. 2013 was one we were particularly proud of in the Sports Technology Awards, where IBM and Wimbledon were awarded Best Sponsorship or Best Technology Partnership. And you can see these ones that have actually been awarded in the last few weeks. The BT Awards are sort of the equivalent of the BAFTAs for the sports industry. Digital Platform of the Year. And we're against things like the Rugby World Cup, UEFA.com, those type of places. And the best use of social media for our Moments That Matter campaign, which directly came from being able to provide the editorial team that data exactly when they needed it. So that's the digital heart that's underneath the skin of Wimbledon. If you took some people from past generations, they'd recognize the tennis, okay? They would not recognize what's going on underneath and the innovation that means you need to be the best in the world. Thank you.